I don't know how it will play out in November, but what we know is that we will end up with many more unemployed, and particularly also people in the grey economy, which are not counted for, who lose their jobs. So we will see definitively a lot of anger already now, but probably increased by the end of the year, because this crisis will be with us until we really have found a remedy. So we have to prepare for a more angry world. And how to prepare? It means to take the necessary action to create a fairer world, to see that we provide everybody with decent access to the health system, that we make sure that those people who are really left behind, and I'm not speaking only on national levels, I'm speaking also internationally. If I see now the tragedy in some of the emerging countries like South Africa, like some countries in East Asia, I think it's all, I don't have too many remedies. The remedies have to be discussed through dialogue by the stakeholders of our global system, but I just see the need for such a dialogue, and I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
To what extent would a reset be brought about by a change in the White House, the election of Joe Biden, for instance?
I don't know. We shouldn't speculate about the outcome of the election. We will see beginning of November, and then we can, in any case, we can, and the World Economic Forum is very open and as an open platform to integrate everybody who is willing to address those issues in a spirit, which means to exercise here true global citizenship.
I want to just pick up on some of the economic projections. In your book, you tackle what the future may look like, and at this stage we're grappling with various letters of the alphabet, whether it's a V or a U or perhaps even a symbol, a tick shape. Can you just give us some clues about the growth down the track, what we can expect?
First, if we look at it at the national or global level, at the macroeconomic level, one of the things we address very much in the book and we are concerned is the increased debt level. We spend about 10 trillion worldwide to deal with the short-term negative effects of the pandemics. But we should be aware we are just increasing our debt situation. And we were already very much debt loaded before we went into the crisis. So how to get at the end out of this debt situation is still a big question mark. Second, we know that there's quite some impact on different industries. We know that certainly the health industry, the digital industry, will go out of this crisis strengthened, but we know that many industries which rely particularly on physical interaction will have difficulties to survive. Finally, I just would add, I think this is an opportunity again to find solutions which are beneficial for the next generation. So why not to tie government aid to the green economy which we have to create? Why not to make sure that we revolutionize, digitalize particularly our educational system? So we are here, when we talk about the Great Reset, to talk also about innovation. How can we do things differently from what we used to do? And if we speak about differently, it means also how can we do it to make sure that a majority of people are benefiting from it and not just a minority.
We started out Davos this year talking about the environment, Greta Thunberg versus Donald Trump. Certainly a lot of headlines crossing from the mountain. But last time round in the crisis, we saw people didn't care so much about the environment when we were talking about large-scale job losses. This time seems different. Are you surprised about how strong the sustainability theme has been right through the pandemic?
No, I would see even a chance to accelerate, let's say, our transition into a green economy, because people probably recognize that we have to become more resilient. We have now the experience of one crisis. The environmental crisis, the climate crisis could be a much bigger one. So I see more awareness, but on the other hand, we have the big issue of unemployment, of low levels of employment, and I think we shouldn't see the two as contradictory objectives.
If we think cash is the analog and digital currency is the form of digital, CBDC is the digital form of cash, today clearly we're in a hybrid situation. We're using both. And we know in the past, when it comes to cash, central bankers were very much in control with all aspects of cash, and now we're comfortable to the point where the private sector plays a big role in the printing of the cash, in distribution of the cash, and with the private sector, we use interest rates to manage the supply of cash. The same thing is likely to happen with CBDC. Yes, the central bank will have a role, but at some point in time, the same way we don't call it central bank cash, we're probably going to stop calling it central bank digital currency. It's going to be a digital form of the cash, and at some point in time, hopefully, we will be able to be 100% digital. Right now is many of our payments are digital. The truth is, I said that we're in a hybrid model. There's less and less use of cash. And I think that from predominantly digital with a little physical, I think the transition to fully digital is not going to be a stretch. People are used to it, people are engaged in it, and circumstances did help. Is adoption rates increased because of COVID.
Yeah.
This is where contactless started to become something of a necessity, something of a safety, something of a requirement. And because of that, there is very little resistance. Trust is already there. We just need to build it in a way that makes sure that we safeguard the risks. Cybersecurity risk is a must, and it needs to be dealt with at the national level. And there's to counter cybersecurity risk, you need to continue to invest, you need to continue to collaborate, and you need to continue to train. With those three things, we've done it in the past, I think we should be able to manage these risks.
Is it going to be as private as cash? No. So a digital currency will never be as anonymous and as protecting of privacy in many respects as cash. Which is why cash will always be around. You know, if people want to use cash in some countries or in some transactions, cash should be available. A digital currency is an alternative, is an other means of payment, and will not provide exactly the same level of privacy and anonymity as cash, but will be pretty close in terms of complete neutrality in relation to the data.
The one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it as a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like say ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC, and I think also extremely dangerous for central banks. Because ultimately, if you have different units of central bank money with different characteristics, or if you use central bank money as a conduit for economic policies in a very targeted way, or more broadly for social policies, that could really affect the integrity of central bank money and the integrity and independence of central banks. So there are wonderful notions of things that can be done with digital money, but again, I fear that technology could take us to a better place, but equally has the potential to take us to a pretty dark place.
Well, it may be a bit late for that. I remember talking to an Australian diplomat at one point about this break between the US and China and said, you know, both sides are going to say, whose team are you on? And he said, our job is to make sure the question never arises. But the question has arisen. And so I think we have to go deeper. And it's not about the US versus China. It's about what underpins a world order is always the financial system. I was very privileged. My father was an advisor to Nixon when they came off the gold standard in '71. And so I was brought up with a kind of inside view of how very important the financial structure is to absolutely everything else. And what we're seeing in the world today, I think, is we are on the brink of a dramatic change where we are about to, and I'll say this boldly, we're about to abandon the traditional system of money and accounting and introduce a new one. And the new one, the new accounting, is what we call blockchain. It means digital. It means having a almost perfect record of every single transaction that happens in the economy, which will give us far greater clarity over what's going on. It also raises huge dangers in terms of the balance of power between states and citizens. In my opinion, we're going to need a digital constitution of human rights if we're going to have digital money. But also, this new money will be sovereign in nature. Most people think that digital money is crypto and private, but what I see are superpowers introducing digital currency. The Chinese were the first. The US is on the brink, I think, of moving in the same direction. The Europeans have committed to that as well. And the question is, will that new system of digital money and digital accounting accommodate the competing needs of the citizens of all these locations so that every human being has a chance to have a better life? Because that's the only measure of whether a world order really serves.
We have a golden opportunity to seize something good from this crisis. Its unprecedented shockwaves may well make people more receptive to big visions of change, and global crises like pandemics and climate change know no borders and highlight just how interdependent we are as one people sharing one planet. Over the past month or so, despite the ongoing crisis, I've been encouraged to see the growing calls for a green recovery. We need only look to the United Nations Secretary General, to the IMF, the EU, the Petersburg Climate Dialogue, the Canadian government, the COP26 Universities Network, and business leaders around the world to see this. And as we move from rescue to recovery, therefore, we have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play. Everything I have tried to do and urge over the past 50 years has been done with our children and grandchildren in mind. So I can only encourage us all to think big and act now.
What we want to do in Davos this year in this respect is to push the reset button. Let me explain. The world is much too much still caught in a crisis management mode. And we forget that we should take now into our hands and we should look for solutions for the really fundamental issues. We should look at our future in a much more constructive, in a much more strategic way. And that's what Davos is about.
Hands again, and we've got some microphones that could come round, so can we start with the gentleman there?
You've mentioned very clearly that it is midlife crisis for emerging.
Last year, the Euro crisis preoccupied everybody's mind. So the question is, what is the context of the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum 2014? I would characterize this context by 3 words. First, cautious optimism. Second, diminished expectations. And number 3, many known unknowns.
A very strong presence, political presence from Latin America. What is this?
Having President Rousseff in Davos, and I'm sure she will be engaged in a number of discussions, talking about the reforms, talking about how to overcome this midlife crisis, because at the end, I think she has a track record, particularly in terms of social inclusion, as we all know.
Tell us anything about what you expect from President Rouhani?
You know, Mrs. Merkel was a regular participant since many, many years in Davos. We regret her ski accidents, that's all what I can say.
Sessions, some 40+ sessions that will be live tweeted in different languages.
Now is the historical moment, the time, not only to fight the virus, but to shape the system.
We have a unique but rapidly shrinking window of opportunity to learn lessons and reset ourselves on a more sustainable path. It is an opportunity we have never had before and may never have again. So we must use all the levers we have at our disposal, knowing that each and every one of us has a vital role to play.
Now is the time to think what history would say about this crisis. And now is the time for all of us to define our own role. What is it that would make it so that history would look at this crisis as the great opportunity for reset?
The Great Reset is a welcome recognition that this human tragedy must be a wake-up call. It is imperative that we reimagine, rebuild, redesign, reinvigorate and rebalance our world. Rebalancing investment, harnessing science and technology, and advancing the transition to net zero emissions, all elements of the Great Reset, are fundamental to building the future we need.
The world's problems fit on 3 sides of a triangle. It's one versus many, man versus nature, and the unfortunate foundation is long-term versus short-term.
We had already income inequality that was fueling income, race, gender inequality. We have a climate emergency, which we can't walk away from. There's no doubt that the very survival of the human race requires us to act.
Any recovery stimulus should have green conditions attached to it. Energy prices should reflect real costs.
You need private sector capital, private sector ingenuity, private sector technology, and private sector capabilities to come to the party. You need enormous trust between the private sector and the public sector for this to actually work.
We have to change our economy dramatically in the next 20 or 30 years, and the next 10 years is absolutely decisive.
The recovery has to be greener, than any of the previous recoveries. And in order to do that, we need to ensure that the stimulus package, including fiscal and monetary, are much greater than they were before. So we cannot waste this opportunity to ensure that the very precious money that's raised from the next generation is spent on green and low carbon.
We will now start a quite high number of task forces to look at all the different issues, and we will present all those ideas to the people assembled in Davos. But at the same time, we will make Davos very different, very open, to ensure that we do not fall back to old recipes, but that we really look at forward-oriented solutions.
Young entrepreneurs, especially from developing countries that are there and can see the right problem, can really step up and create solutions.
Finding profitable solutions to problems of the people and the planet, and we're starting to see firms move to that, and we're seeing firms that behave responsibly in that way actually doing better on conventional measures of profitability and doing better in this particular period.
We've also seen social entrepreneurs step in incredible ways. Not only has it exposed the precarious reality, but then it has also exposed the opportunity to recenter the reset around the most vulnerable and those on the edge, where it only takes something like a pandemic or difficult circumstances to slide into poverty.
And then we need to couple that with new initiatives to equip more people with the digital skills they'll need, not just to have a tech job, but a job that is increasingly tech-enabled in almost every part of the economy. If we can empower consumers with all of this, I think we unleash this next generation to have a much broader impact more quickly.
We can never again allow our health, education, care systems to be underfunded.
We need our imagination here. Possible is being redefined each and every day right now. So the next time someone tells us that tackling climate change is either too costly or too difficult, I think we need to remind them and remind ourselves of what just is happening right now.
We not only have to demand change, but also create change.
We have to live up to the expectations which we have created, and we will do so.